This is Block 8, Pax Americana, Section 4, We Like Ike, and Rock and Roll. Just as culturally important as television was the birth of rock and roll. Rock and roll is a uniquely American art form as well. It combined elements of jazz, country, R&B, and then put that, to the lively beats of the newly invented electric guitar. Rock and roll swept over the United States and then swept over the world. And it was aimed at teenagers. This is a market niche that grows during the 1950s. Teen culture, as exemplified if you've ever seen the movie Grease. Cars and proms and dating and, the stuff that we kind of naturally assume is teenage life was a part of 1950s culture. It's aimed at teenagers. Nothing got, older, more square, traditional-minded Americans more angry than the rock and roll that their children started listening to. And it was popularized, of course, by a face that almost everybody knows. This is Elvis Presley. When Elvis Presley came onto the scene, rock music had just kind of been starting out, and it was widely considered to be black music. And black music was not music that, good, upstanding white citizens ought to be listening to. That it was black music for black people. What Elvis did, he was born in Mississippi in a not an integrated community because there was obviously segregation, but Elvis Presley, took in a lot of influences from black music, from black church music, from jazz and gospel and R&B. And being a white guy, to be perfectly frank, he made rock and roll acceptable to American whites. He was obviously a good-looking guy, sexually suggestive as hell, with his hips swinging. This was stuff that no one had ever seen on television. This was when Frank Sinatra's a good-looking guy. Frank Sinatra is definitely in the 1940s, a symbol of, good-looking masculinity, but the sexuality is understated. The sexuality is implied. Elvis gets up there on stage and starts gyrating his hips like he's practically having sex on stage. And this was like, oh my God, stop the presses, call the children home. This man is ruining America. His voice doesn't help. That low, sexy, sultry Elvis voice with the hips and the dancing and the music made him an incredible hero to millions of American teenagers and made him the very definition of everything that was wrong about, the young people in American, more traditionally minded World War II vets that were now parents. But Elvis Presley makes rock music popular, and it makes rock music acceptable, barely, to white America. And of course, Elvis Presley, it's not just America. That rock music spreads to Europe. Elvis spreads to Europe like wildfire, and it inspires, two people sitting there in a small town in England, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, to kind of start writing out some tunes and some beats of their own. And of course, they would go on to be the foundation of the Beatles, widely considered the greatest rock band ever. But, in a lot of ways, it starts with Elvis. And Elvis, you have to say, is one of the most important cultural figures in 20th century America. He changes American music forever. And that's an important part of culture.